Welcome. All right, we'll get started. Welcome to the monthly workshop for the Springfield Township Board of Commissioners. We may be expecting Commissioner Cobb. Otherwise, everyone is here. Do we have any live attendees on the Zoom? One, okay, welcome. And typically, we start this meeting with any matters that involve our township engineers. So we will do that first. And then if we gather any further audience, we'll poll them for items that they're here for. But as of now, I think we just have one covered. So why don't we jump in, Tim?
Great, Mr. Lee, happy to do so. And on your agenda for consideration on Wednesday night is the Mount St. Joe's Academy final land development approval for their field house addition. Recalling we've been through this project a couple of times earlier, probably last spring is when we took the preliminary plans kind of through the planning commission and the township. At this point, the plan set is in a form that I feel is approvable. There are some outside agency approvals that are still being worked through. In your book as a resolution for consideration on Wednesday night. I think the threshold issue for the board is the consideration of that waiver of public improvements along the road frontages, the widening, curbing, and sidewalk that are otherwise required by ordinance. The translation of the trail along Wissahickon was discussed as a compromise. Recalling also that the county, Montgomery County Commissioners are undertaking and finally bidding that cross-county trail that runs along Stanton, comes to the intersection of Wissahickon, and then heads south on Wissahickon, part of the Morris Arboretum Trail. In the discussions last month, we discussed the Township Commissioners' willingness to fund the HOP approvals that would facilitate the handicap ramp construction on the Mount St. Joe's side of Wissahickon, recalling that the county HOP, their PennDOT permits, didn't obligate that landing pad on the Mount side of the intersection. We found that odd, recalling that we explored that pretty far through the commissioner's office, through PennDOT. We used our traffic engineers, McMahon and Associates, to further those discussions. And we're not sure why, but PennDOT just felt that this has been through so many iterations. The county commissioners have had it up to their ears with delays, easement acquisitions, costs. They are finally at a point where they suspect that they don't want to go back to anybody else and we get this trail bid, awarded, and under construction. We are very hopeful that when the county does so, that they will include a minor change order that would allow for the construction of that ramp on the Mount side of Wissahickon. But in an absence of that county participation, there's a provision in the resolution that would suggest that the Mount would take on that final obligation for that upgrade of that ramp, probably a PED push button, some paints to make that pedestrian crossing connect to our existing trail that the Mount has installed last summer. Barring that, any questions, the Mount folks are all here for any questions that you guys may have, but I think the plan is in a form that is approvable if the board is so inclined.
Great.
So is that in lieu of the open space fee?
I think the open space fee is still part of the application, like, correct?
The trail along Wissahickon Avenue.
That was in lieu, Beth, of the open space fee, correct?
Sorry, can I ask one more question? There was also something that one thing that was not in it was the identification of the trees that were being removed.
That is part of my letter, and I think that's part of what the Mounts engineers have said that they will quantify as a condition of plan approval.
The bottom line, before the plans get recorded, they're gonna resubmit a plan to Tim that's gonna show that information, and he's gonna be satisfied with that before we sign off.
Correct. And again, there's a couple outside. This big one that every developer faces is the NPDES permit that's issued by the County Conservation District as a delegation authority to DEP. And that is a very heavy lift. And so there will be some plan revisions, I believe, required in order to dot every I and cross every T with that NPDES application.
Tim, I know that this is outside of the scope of this project. Is there any consideration of the overall county trail plan involving anything on Stanton?
I am not aware of anything on Stanton at this point, Mr. Lee. The county project certainly ends at Wissahickon and then goes down Wissahickon toward Valley Green.
Yeah, okay.
So I'm not aware of any other further extension along Stenton, any conversation anyway at this point.
We were just recently asked to fill out some information for the Montgomery County comprehensive plan update. And they asked for like all the pie in the sky kind of projects like that you can come up with. And we identified that as a potential trail link in the future, just to kind of get it on the county's radar and, hopefully they'll.
You mean on Stanton?
On Stanton.
Was that part of our aspirational trail plan?
Yeah,
It was on there?
yeah, they reach out to all the municipalities and they encourage people to come back with like, what are.
Right, but
projects-
they helped develop our trail plan.
Oh, yeah,
Saying in
for
that
sure.
plan, is that already, is that?
Oh, that's in that
That's in
plan.
it, okay.
Yeah, that's in that plan.
I just have one question because I don't remember. They are going to build, you are going to build a detention basin?
Oh, yes. And that stormwater management component, Pete, has become ever increasingly difficult.
Yes.
And that NPDES permit process analyzes specifically that obligation.
Okay.
And so it's a big
And
detention basin that goes along with
basin
it.
Will be forward of the realignment of the tennis courts, is that?
Yeah, well, downgrade, if you can picture the Mount
Downgrade,
property,
kind of,
yeah,
yep.
there's the channel that runs through the north side of the campus.
Yep.
And so that basin will intercept any new impervious cover that is being
Sure.
built before it reaches that channel. Yes.
The kids can choose to have their detention served there. too.
Yes, right.
Yeah. In the basin,
In the basin.
aptly named.
Correct.
I love it.
Yeah, it's detention versus retention. Detention, you kind of stay for a little bit and then leave.
Yes.
Retention is kind of like knowledge, keep it forever. Great. So it sounds like you guys are good for Wednesday night if you don't have any questions from the Mount side of the story. Bernadette, their attorney, is certainly here.
Yeah, just, so short. Andy Freeman, your solicitor, and I are just going back and forth on the resolution. I think we'll have it done by Wednesday.
Great,
Great. So that'll be a motion for Wednesday night.
okay. Right, awesome. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
If you stick around, we got some exciting options.
Yeah, absolutely.
Agenda.
Just a word of update. If you've been by Cisco Park, our pond dredging operation is about complete. Recall that our low bidding contractor didn't have a great deal of experience on his resume for pond dredging, but they did a very nice job, very clean, very thorough. Their foreman was very cooperative with our staff. And so they have come right up to our budget for the project. They have stopped, I believe, as of this afternoon. They were just hauling out some material. If not today, certainly next couple of days, they'll finish hauling the sediment and silt from the park to the dump site and then begin the restoration operation. They have got, where they have disturbed the earth where they were making access to the pond. They've got to restore that, put back some stone, clean everything up, make sure that anything they may have done to the bus parking lot and the driveway to the parking garage is cleaned up. So that's coming along very nicely.
Then we get some rain.
Then we get some rain and we can fill it back up again. Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
And so the area I showed you the
Yeah.
picture of, where at the very entrance to the pond, where there's a concrete lip
Yes.
that the creek then transitions into the pond. It has obviously a lot of erosion under the.
I would call that
existing
scour.
Avian walls.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know what, Pete, I was,
I know it's beyond the scope of what
Yep.
these guys were doing. It's not their fault. But it's something that I think we should address because you're gonna get collapsed the way we
yeah.
had other. clubs.
After our conversation, I
Yeah.
think what I will do is get a hold of Ian and perhaps we can get, a local contractor to at least get some heavier riprap in there before they complete restoration, Mike, if that makes some sense. I think that does, might be worthwhile,
Yeah.
Pete, to do.
Do you think that the riprap will hold it and keep it stabilized? Because getting a pump truck in there and trying to get.
It's going to be a lot, yeah.
It's gonna be a lot, especially in this kind of.
What often happens, especially when the water level is a bit low and you get flow over that weir spillway, you get kind of a backflowing scour effect. And I think that has been taking material out from beneath that concrete spillway. And certainly armoring that would be a good idea at this point, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it would be ideal if you could get like a gun treatment.
Yeah, that might, I think
Check his
it would be,
brothers.
but I'm not sure we have enough time between now and when these guys' contract expires. They want to get out of here. They're done. They
Oh, I'm
want
not
to
saying
clean
they
up.
have to do it. I mean, you know, I'm just saying
Yeah.
that, you know, it's gonna need to be done,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
And I kind of agree with your opinion. So, you know, in the overall effort to maintain that pond, that's probably one of the maintenance items we should put on our list for sure.
What's the site that the materials was hauled to?
Over Militia Hill Road. Yeah. I never knew we owned land in White Marsh Township, but evidently we do. So,
You sell some, we'll
yeah,
double stuff.
right, exactly.
What else is there?
Nothing, because it's an old leaf dump
Mhm.
that we use
Um,
principally for this project.
This kind of stuff. Yeah. Wonderful. Great. Also on your agenda this evening is consideration to authorize us to go out to bid for the Avondale Road Storm Sewer Improvement Project. This project's been floating around for a number of years. Ian and I and Mike have been out a couple of times, last summer especially, to talk to some neighbors about ongoing icing and kind of the mossy overflow that gets into the gutter line because of sump pump and poor drainage in that area.
Yeah, well, anyone wants to look.
Yeah, exactly. And that goes down to Longfield. And
That where the, that dead ends, right?
it
Past
does
Glendalough?
up behind the synagogue.
Is the top of the hill.
Yeah. And you know, Pico was just in there replacing gas main and gas laterals. Ian has that road on this summer's project paving list. So we thought that this would be a really good opportunity to get in, get some storm sewer installed and get that area cleaned up in conjunction with the paving project.
Are you contemplating, you know, following the Boucher and James plan?
Similar, I think because of what we now know about utilities, I think the main trunk line will go on the north side of Avondale rather than the south side, which
Okay,
was
understand. Yeah.
anticipated
Which is
in
where
the
the
B and J.
problem-
Yeah, yeah, oh, yeah,
Yeah.
there's no real problem on the other side. Yeah.
So we're going to try and minimize that effort, but at the same time, you know, get enough storm sewer in there where, you know, we're going to spend the
Yes,
money and
yes.
make the effort. We might as well try and solve the problem.
Right. Yeah. I will tell you though, that there is another problem at the bottom of that. The very bottom, and in actuality, the picture shows it clearly when, where it hits or just above where it hits Longfield Road, I believe it was when they were replacing the water mains there in that road a number of years ago. They, putting the new mains down, they really failed to close off or plug the old water main. And it appears as if there's almost like an outflow. You can actually see on this picture, the distortion of where the water surfaces at the bottom of Avondale there. So.
You plan on doing some under drains with the.
Oh, yeah, Pete, exactly. So one of the things that Jonathan, you know, who's been here forever, has
Yeah.
explained to Ian and I is that water coming down Avondale does, because it gets under, you know, groundwater underneath the surface of the paving,
Yeah,
does run and does cause problems at that intersection.
yes,
So the installation of that storm sewer and some other drain,
okay.
I think really should clean up
Okay.
the vast majority of
Yeah,
that issue.
my only
Yeah.
point is, if you're gonna put the collection system on the north side, you know, maybe one on the south side at the very bottom might be helpful also.
To pick that up. Yep,
Yeah, well, you're gonna be coming across.
Right, come across anyways, you know.
indeed.
Tim, I'm sorry if I missed this. Is this intended to be just two phases of one continuous project?
I think Boucher and James had it broken up in case we want to, you got to do the bottom part first
Yeah.
in order to connect to Longfield. And they had it broken up for purposes of budgeting.
Okay.
There probably is a cost estimate that they had prepared at some point to go along with this sketch
Okay.
that we didn't put in there because
Gotcha.
it's so outdated.
Well, we did do the Longfield Road.
Longfield's done.
All
Yep.
done, you know, they
But
put.
the intention is to do the whole thing.
Correct. That's what.
That's correct. That's what we're proposing anyway. Yeah, exactly.
As Tim said, we have better utility data now than we had at the time that sketch was put together. We may not be able to do quite as big of a system that Boucher James had envisioned there just because of conflicts with existing utilities that come laterally across the street. So we're gonna do the best we can, but we're gonna incorporate some under drains because of what we now know to be a groundwater issue.
Yeah, and hopeful that the collection system will ease some of that groundwater problem. I think you've got so many sump pumps discharging, get below the
Yeah.
paving surface and runs down grade toward Longfield. So
Yeah.
I think that's part of the issue as well.
Yeah, yeah.
We know we have to check their numbers anyway.
And the interesting thing also is when they built this road, there's no intake on that avenue, there's zero.
Yeah,
So, you know,
right.
it's like a tidal wave on a range.
There wasn't anything on Longfield either.
Yeah, right.
Well, no, yes, there were. Yes, there were.
Are there any other?
There was
projects?
one.
One or two, yeah.
Yeah, they put one at the bottom.
Yeah, the one at the bottom. Yeah.
I'm just curious, are there any other projects like this throughout the township that we've seen for in the past?
We have in the past on
Or
things like
any on
this.
any on deck at the
This
moment?
is like one of the only ones that's kind of like on there right now.
This has been kicking around for a while.
Yeah,
And this one doesn't have curves, but somewhat related, I noticed on Paper Mill, a couple of the areas where the inlets are, they're kind of actually off the road and into the curve you're talking about. Is that just a different style of? inlet
so
that-
where the inlet is pushed back off the edge of the
Right.
cartway,
That
yeah.
way- That way, when you drive, there's no chance that you're gonna run over it.
Yeah, that is not the
Randomly-
standard design at this point, Suze. The PennDOT specification, they have their type C inlet, which has a curb on the back of it. And so the inlet just ties into face of curb, better to capture the gutter line flow in the street. And typically on larger roads, that 2 foot that makes up the width of the type C inlet is kind of the shoulder as opposed to the driving lane. In small residential streets, to your point, oftentimes you are driving over the inlet grate as you are making intersection turns, that type of thing. But they are intended, for vehicle traffic. If you're not traveling at a high rate of speed, a little bit of a dip really shouldn't affect, the drivability of the roadway. Sometimes though, the location of the pipe and the proximity of curb does force that inlet back behind the curb, and we're kind of warping the curb back in to capture that water. Yeah.
We had to do that on Little Mill Road in the
Yeah.
Fremont block when we built the storm sewer system there. In conjunction with the underground detention facility. And it was the engineer at the time, Shane James, it wasn't their preference to do it because it's not as efficient, right? Because you're making the water
Yeah.
turn a little bit to get into the inlet. It's more.
There's
efficient to
more
have
of a
it
chance it
line.
bypasses the inlet if it's set back incorrect.
I just asked, I
Yeah.
didn't know what the.
Yeah.
Forgive my ignorance on
No.
stormwater
That's good.
collection.
Sure.
rates.
Yeah, no. Susan, sometimes too, it's the proximity of other
Type B
utilities.
inlet.
Yeah.
I'm more of a type B inlet.
Yeah.
guy.
Are there other,
Yeah.
styles to
Yeah.
consider?
Yeah.
I think about that often, just as a
Yeah.
person who drives. it
Yeah.
messes up your-
And Sue, sometimes there might be a water main in the edge of the road. And so to put storm sewer in, you got to move the storm sewer over. But now the storm sewer is kind of out of the travel lane, so you kind of dip your inlets back in to get over the center line of the pipe.
A little bit of, it depends on, as always, it depends on.
Yeah, every situation's a bit different, I would suggest, but the standard condition is that face of curb, type C PennDOT inlet. Yeah. I think that's all I had, barring any questions.
I didn't have any.
Beautiful. Enjoy your basketball game tonight, guys.
Great, thank you, Tim.
Thank you. Ouch. Ouch, he says.
All right, we don't have any remaining guests in the room, so we can just jump into the book. Unless you have a preference or a priority, Michael?
No, it's the book.
Okay.
Okay.
All
First one for you, Mr. President.
right, no stigma, no shame day. So this will be our third year, our official day in April. And I think Barb had actually emailed some of their paperwork. The commissioners asked us to distribute that, and we'll do that. We'll make a announcement about that Wednesday.
Yeah, and I think you'll probably see Barb and a couple of the students that are in the no stigma, no shame.
Yep.
I don't say clubs, but, you know,
Still-
part of their group, so.
Okay, great. Do they have any other events that they asked to do?
No, they're posting these flyers, copy of which I think you got. a
Yep.
Copy of, in, businesses throughout town, and I think that they just wanna, talk here, and Mike Pitko was gonna reach out to them to see if they wanted to set up their table at the,
Drug take back?
drug take back day.
Okay.
They usually do some form of either a, you know, accept donations or that type of thing. So
Okay.
we'll see what they have planned.
Great. All right, B, we covered. We'll vote on that Wednesday. C, Board and Court of Appeals. We know if David would like to continue. I assume he would. He just joined.
I think he probably will. I'll give him a call.
Okay, great.
Pretty sure he will, but.
All right.
Okay.
And then we set that up so it was staggered, right? So that,
Yeah, the initial term was, Dave was the first one to, up, he's a 1-year term, and then the next guy is a 2-year term, and the third member is a 3-year term, so
okay.
the next few years you'll have.
All right, great. And we're up to you, Mike.
Okay. Up to me.
That report of the township manager.
Yeah, so, try and run through here pretty quick. The Historical Society, the, Gilded Age, or the Great Estates of the Gilded Age, storyboards or display boards, they will be, professionally installed on April 22nd at the library. And as a reminder, every 2 years, they hope to rotate them with another display board series, you know, with some other historically significant feature. So it's pretty cool. So in preparation for that, Ian arranged for the, existing artwork that was on the walls to come down, and then he had them patched and repainted professionally. So it looks good. It's ready for the install.
Great.
Just a minor update on the schoolhouse in, Flowertown. They discovered mold in the basement. So they closed the school for a period of a week or so in order to thoroughly clean it. I mentioned that because it's owned by Carson Valley, and we've been trying for quite some time to get a meeting together. I know, Beth, you were in contact with Rick Collier and spoke with them in the past. Rick's helpful, and does his best to try and get that meeting arranged. But admittedly, he said it's been sliding. Now, he's out of the country. I don't know if he's in South Africa, or he's far. He has been away for like 3 weeks or so, and I think he's not gonna come back until mid-April. But he said, when I get back, I'll make it a priority, and we'll try and get that scheduled. So just putting that in there, just so you know, if you forget. Township Pennybrook, which is the 16 unit townhouse development on Halls Lane, is well underway. Most of the site work has been completed at this point. Curbs have been installed, utilities have been installed, the stormwater detention basin has been constructed, although it'll serve as a sediment basin temporarily. I believe they were going to start base pavement installation today. I suspect that didn't happen as a result of the weather. But they did apply for all 16 of their building permits at one time. So they're gonna get rocking and rolling and move pretty quick. So you'll see that reflected in the building permits, at some point in the future. I don't think that they transmitted just yet, but that'll be coming out.
Did we get the details on the trees? The group that requested it 4 months
I think
ago?
Beth shared that
I
information.
did,
The tree
okay.
inventory?
Yep.
Yeah, I passed it on to Springfield Open Space.
Okay, great. How's the student pedestrian flow going?
Seemingly good. The crossing guard, as I reported a few months ago, has agreed to walk the elementary school students from the crossing down by the elementary school up to Green Hill Road, and then cross them at that location, and then go back to work post for the end of the day. The middle school kids, and high school kids, we asked the school district to put out an announcement and encourage them to come through the Fraser Road connector here, because they got to go either through the tunnel or get to the high school anyway. So it just makes sense rather than going all the way down Halls Lane and then up
Okay.
Springfield Way. More direct path for them.
Mhm.
So it seems to be working out okay. Haven't heard anything. So.
Okay, great.
Walnut Avenue Trail Phase 2, I guess that's something that Tim could have reported on today. We did have a meeting today with SEPTA to talk about any complications that we may run into with regards to the crossing underneath of the existing railroad line. There's 2 big culverts there, one of which carries Sandy Run Creek through it. The other one was constructed, we think principally as either an overflow for the floodway there, but it also conveys a Bucks County Water and Sewer Authority sanitary sewer main below it. So we're gonna try and run our trail on top of that. We've
Oh.
already talked to Bucks and they're okay with it. They said that's not unique. We do that a lot. And SEPTA has been real helpful. We will need to get, or I don't know that we need to petition the PUC, but we need to write a letter to the PUC for that crossing underneath, even though it sort of exists today. And we may need to get a license from SEPTA for the construction activities. You know, that's really for the contractors to do that, so. But that's moving along. I know Tim's group also did a survey and they did, they delineated wetlands in the area. Fortunately, we're not going to disturb any of that. It's still going to be somewhat complicated because we are in a floodplain. So we have a pre-application meeting scheduled with DEP to find out what kind of hurdles they're going to make us jump through to do this. So more to come, but it's moving along.
Right.
Cheltenham Avenue Road Diet, the county, as you may recall, was successful in securing a grant through the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission to study the feasibility of implementing a road diet on Cheltenham Avenue. The road diet would contemplate the construction of bike lanes as well along that road because it seemingly has some excess capacity in most of the locations. Bowman Consulting Group, which is formerly McMahon Engineers, and we're familiar with them, was selected by a group of folks that Cheltenham appointed somebody, we appointed somebody, which was Ian. The county had somebody on there. And that group evaluated all of the engineering proposals that were received. Everybody selected Bowman. They were the least costly, but they were very familiar with the area. They're located in Fort Washington, so everybody felt comfortable with them. They're getting ready to get started. They started some traffic counts and that type of thing. They would like us to put together a steering committee and they suggested that you have somebody from your public works department, your police department, and a planner is what was suggested. Now, our planner is Montgomery County, our community planner. They're already going to be involved, especially through the transportation department. But if one of the commissioners wanted to be a part of it, like I'm sure they could find space for somebody if you were interested. Meetings will be held during the day, but they will be virtual, so they're kind of convenient that way. So if anybody's interested, just let me know. And I'll say. But otherwise, Sean Hart and Ian are going to be on that as well. So that's moving forward. That's not going to get done until June of 2026. That's what their timeline looks like right now. But there will also be community outreach meetings that'll be held, and I volunteered our space here to have it because it's pretty close to Cheltenham Avenue, although it's the far end of one end of the corridor. But LaSalle is also going to be involved, so LaSalle is willing to lend some space at their facility. So,
And this study would go to the city, to the city of Philadelphia? Stop at the city
it
of
stops in the
Philadelphia?
city of Philadelphia,
Right.
yes. It encompasses Springfield, Cheltenham, and the city of Philadelphia, and the county is kind of leading the whole effort.
So it's Ivy Hill to Paper
It's
Mill?
beyond Ivyville Road. It goes down into, they get down into almost,
Oh, if it's all, okay, so it'll go down to Tookenny Creek Parkway, that's, that's. the
almost
end,
down
yeah.
that far, yeah. The city weighed in and they had a suggestion on where they thought a logical stopping might be. So that's that.
I'm not sure I have capacity for more meetings, but just to have it on the calendar, just let us know when it happens.
Okay.
Whosoever can show up. One of us.
It's another-
Yeah,
Well,
just think- I would just
battle
think,
that. Yes.
residents,
Yeah.
maybe just want to have a say.
Yeah, we'll certainly make sure we get the word out about any meetings that come up for the community, that's for sure.
But for the committee meetings, the daytime.
Yeah. I'll give both of you your contact information. Earth Day Art Contest. So Brendan Lash, our new recreation coordinator, has come up with a art contest for children kindergarten through 12th grade. They can win a prize from some of the local businesses that he's sort of put the squeeze on to give away a free pizza here or there, whatever. So it's kind of a fun little project, fun little event to put together.
Great.
You skipped Bethlehem Pike.
Pardon?
You skipped the
Oh, did I?
Bethlehem.
Yes.
I did skip Bethlehem Pike. Okay, so Bethlehem Pike. So on March 27th, we had a meeting with Terrace Incorporated, which is a third-party engineering firm that PennDOT has contracted with to try and adjust the traffic signals to improve traffic flow on Bethlehem Pike now that the road diet has been implemented. They've already done traffic counts and turning movements along Bethlehem Pike, have a pretty good feel for what's going on out there now. Their initial thoughts are some of the side streets are detecting vehicles that are close to the intersection, but tripping the signal right away, which means that Bethlehem Pike is going red. And conversely, Bethlehem Pike signals are awful long. So they're not turning green until they see traffic stacked for a little ways longer. So they've kind of let the experiment with reversing that whole thing so that the side streets may back up a little bit longer, but Bethlehem Pike will flow more efficiently. That's one of the things that they have studied. So what they're going to do is they're going to go intersection by intersection and they're going to program the change. And they're going to watch it for a while and they're going to ask us what we think of the change before they move on to the next intersection. So they're working on it. It's no cost to us. And they seem to have their act together and know what they're doing.
Are they making those incremental changes right away and monitoring it?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I
But
know
they're not
you're
doing
good.
all of them at one time. They're
Right,
working on
right.
one at a time.
Right. Okay.
So
What does it mean to us that they, we no longer have the master controller on Bethlehem?
So we used to be able to go to that controller and plug in our equipment and we would be able to program all the signals from there
Oh, okay.
along the corridor. Now that's taken offline. That doesn't work anymore. Now they all go back to PennDOT independently. So we have to go to each of the controllers on our own. But for a while, we thought that was still functioning, but it's not functioning.
It's not, it's a dead box, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it still has the controller equipment for
Yeah.
that intersection, but it doesn't have the master.
Do they have to physically go through is there nothing remote that you can?
They may have access to dial in from PennDOT. I'm not sure about that. You sat in on the meeting.
I think they might, but yeah, they were talking with regard to that issue where it doesn't talk anymore. They should probably could just go ahead and pull that out as well.
Yeah, it goes right back to the PennDOT center.
What was that issue that they had at Willow Grove instead for a couple of days? Is that resolved? I assume that's resolved. There were lights that were out.
Oh, yeah, it's a city. That's a city signal. It's not one of ours. And I think it's old equipment over there, quite frankly.
Okay.
And the city has thousands of traffic signals, and that's just like one of many that's on their list. We had temporary stop signs put up, but on our side, but then we had to get them on their side.
But we will eventually get control back
We have control at the actual signal.
at the signal.
Yeah.
Okay,
We just don't have it at that master control box anymore for all of them. We have to go to each
Okay,
individual
but-
one.
but when this is all done, we will still no longer have the master.
No,
Be
it's
able
not
to-
wired, it's not wired into there like it was in the past. They're all wired back to PennDOT.
Okay.
They have to be individually adjusted.
Yeah, we still have, there still are signals and we still don't,
Yeah.
but we have a permit that we have to comply with. So we
Yeah.
can't just go out willy-nilly change things on our own.
Yeah.
We have to live the permit.
I was gonna say, clearly this was their intent, so that they would have more control and ability to.
Well, if there was a problem, they can report back and they know what it is. They didn't necessarily have that when it was, at the field location. So,
But I guess my question is, will we have visibility into their master control system for Bethlehem Pike?
probably not.
Okay,
We never did, other than going out to physically go to that box at Bethlehem Hill. And we still can go to each individual controller and see what's going on.
The improvements forthcoming.
Yes, they are coming, and they hope to have them done before the start of the school year next year. Electric vehicle, the F-150 Lightning is in service. It's assigned to the detectives. And
I'd like to request that that be put on public display before our Wednesday meeting,
Okay,
so we can all
Peruse it, kick the tires,
kick a tire, take a ride, maybe.
plug it in, bring some double A's, maybe some D bends.
I'll see what I can arrange for you there.
Take the kids on a hayride?
Like at the mall, when the doors are really open.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Um,
With a car.
ambulance to go by.
Jeez.
Restaurant refresh. Many of you probably read in the staff minutes that Bruno's Restaurant on Germantown Pike and Northwestern Avenue was selected for the reality TV series Restaurant Refresh.
Not a minute too soon either, I might add.
So they did their filming March 24th, week of March 24th, and they wrapped up on the following weekend, the 29th to the 30th. We participated with some very minor traffic control where they were delivering some shipping containers and other equipment. We also helped out by posting one side of Northwestern Avenue, no parking from Germantown down to Oak. They contributed by going out and notifying the residents what was going to be happening and telling them what they were doing. So we didn't have any complaints and it seemed to work out. Be interested and kind of cool to see what the TV show comes up with, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I just
Being
noticed the
when?
new red chairs and
Yeah,
the
it looks nice.
new
from
red
outside.
awning, yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay, good.
You do anything about the food?
Ho,
Wait.
Well, they didn't change the
ho.
milkshakes. They was a really good.
Food milkshakes are great.
Next item could be executive if you want. It's litigation. Basically, the attorney for SOP has asked for his legal fees, so that'll be on your bill listing for this month.
Great.
And then update on a couple of new hires. Made a conditional offer of employment for a code enforcement officer, fire marshal, and his current employer promptly offered him a promotion to stay. So lost out there. Same thing happened with our number one candidate for community relations and social media positions. Although we have two really strong candidates there, so I think candidate number two will be a good one as well. I have a additional offer going out to her. And then on the fire marshal, I got to meet with candidate number two this week.
That's too bad.
Who will fill in for Chuck at the EAC?
So for the EAC, well, I understand Chuck missed the last couple of meetings because of his health issues that he had. I mean, between either Greg or I will draw straws and maybe make a bet.
I'm betting on Craig.
We'll see. Maybe we rotate until we get somebody in. So. Yeah, so that's where we are. So that's it.
You already sucked Carol back in?
Yeah, oh, wow, yeah, whoa.
So in addition to, Jamie taking over as the office manager now, we didn't have anybody at that front desk. Robin had some health issues and she was out helping a member of her family recover from pretty significant surgery. So we were really short staffed and Carol was willing to come in for a couple of hours just to take the pressure off of Mark and Chuck and Emily, because they're right there at the front of the building and the people walk in and they, are lost, they don't know where to go.
Yeah.
A little, somebody there to just kind of like route them in the proper area and just is helpful, so. Yeah,
Carol?
I don't think she's willing to do it long term, but she's willing to help out.
Mike, can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
Something I guess would fall under the manager's report. Was there any communication with the township regarding the Truist Golf Room met at Philly Cricket?
The only thing we've heard is this May or next year? Next. What's the one that's next year?
This May.
This May, the big one?
Yep.
So White Marsh Township has, police department has reached out and they were interested in securing some police detail officers for security. That was the only contact that we've had.
But parking, no impact to the flower town,
Not,
just the area.
yeah, not to my knowledge.
I thought they would want to shuttle. Like
That's, I mean, it's like a national
shuttle.
championship, it's a
Yeah.
huge
Yeah.
nationally televised championship. I don't know where they would park people, I mean, usually they park people and shuttle people and,
Right.
but Valley Green should be open or will be closed?
I imagine it should be open, although, given the bridge limitation, weight limitations, it's not gonna be a preferred route into Flower Town that way. Yeah, they haven't reached out and said anything.
They should reach out to Carson Valley, see if they can park there.
Well, I mean, yeah, I'm just wondering if there was any sort of plan or if there's any sort of announcement for traffic
I
or,
haven't heard anything.
It would be good to know if there was gonna be planned
Somebody should be
closures.
thinking about it.
Yeah.
yeah, I can't
What's
imagine.
the date?
Valley Green would be open.
What's the date on it? Do you know?
I think it's May 7th, that first. It would be before we meet.
Did you make the cut?
Not this year.
No.
Not this year, but just because it's before we meet next.
I submitted my 9-hole scores. I still didn't make the cut.
I went to Woody's to
Is
work.
Jim gonna rent out?
Yeah.
I don't know. He should. He's in prime viewing.
Yeah,
All right, so yeah, I'll
right out
reach
your
out to,
driveway.
Right.
You get
I'll reach out to
some-
White Marsh and see what they, I'm sure it's better than planned out,
Yeah.
but I'm not gonna hope that it doesn't impact us within that.
Which
lack of a reach out.
It's kind of from a traffic standpoint.
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt.
And I noticed on my walks that that little sliver of land that we sold to that veterinary clinic, they finally paved that and landscaped that, looks real nice.
New
That-
sign, so.
That side of the what's that, Sunnyberg Creek.
Yeah,
It looks like once it goes underneath Bethlehem Pike, like all this debris is kind of piled up there. Big logs and it's clear on our side, but underneath, I don't know, is that a concern for anybody or is that something that occasionally people go in and clean that out?
like what, in between the animal hospital and the McGarity property?
Yeah.
In there?
Yeah.
I would
I mean,
have to
I think
take
that
a
is
look
White
at
Marsh,
it.
right?
What's that?
Is that White Marsh?
Yeah, that's White Marsh. Why don't you take a look at it?
All right, next is bill listing. Any questions on bill listing?
This does not include the legal settlement, right?
No, that'll be in your agenda.
Okay.
All right, F, we got a hefty zoning board schedule. We'll talk about the one in executive, correct?
Yeah.
Any others that we need to discuss? They all seem pretty boilerplate. Nothing major.
Nothing significant. On a garden variety.
So,
Residential.
so are they just doing two meetings just to split it up?
Yeah, because of the number of positions that were in there.
Okay.
And originally, they anticipated, one of them, which was gonna involve counsel on both sides, that they thought would take a while, so that's why they
Okay.
bumped that. Now with that potentially not going on that first meeting of Kyle. Move.
Okay,
Just refresh my memory, the St. John's one was supposed to be temporary and
Yeah, so they had came come in and they said that they had a 2-year lease on this trailer. They needed it for a blip in population that was coming through the school system. So they were okay with the condition that it be for a period of no longer than 2 years. They've now come back as the 2-year mark is approaching and they're like, we really would like to keep that trailer. So we'd like to come back in front of the zoning hearing board and get that extended. So,
what, how long of an extension are they asking for?
I don't know. Say 2 years or just longer.
It's nicely landscaped.
Yeah, it's got the.
If that's worth anything.
Requested relief. Yeah, it doesn't say on here. Do you know, John,
Yeah.
if they were requesting a certain time period?
I have it too.
to be
Yeah,
in.
No, we didn't take a stance when they first did that, right?
No, we just let the.
Yeah.
Zoning hearing board deal with it.
Okay.
Do they intend to expand, let it go? Just curious.
The school itself,
I think it's just year by year based on their,
Yeah.
their kindergarten enrollment. And they assess the need for extra space from there.
I think K through 8.
Another question was, as noted, what, for the first prize, what they have labeled a limited daycare use. Why is it in quotes or why is it their labeling it? Is it a use that we already have listed and it's different than what we would have listed on our side?
I don't think we define a limited daycare use. I think they're calling it a limited daycare use. I don't know what that means. I think that's gonna have to be fleshed out.
I was gonna
At
say,
the
what would that
zoning hearing board.
qualify?
It could be limited in time, limited in size of student body.
Just for my knowledge, our usage, our language around that is just daycare.
Daycare.
Limited, we don't really watch them, we just let them run around.
The St. John's petition does not specify the duration. If you wanted to kind of get word back that you're okay with another 2 years, or if you don't really care.
I don't feel strongly about it. I mean, who's,
I've heard
I have no strong opinions except for.
Is that in your ward, Beth?
Consistency with what everything, whatever else.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to have been.
Do you have any complaints about it or
No,
anything
we
like
haven't had
that?
any stuff.
Yeah, but I don't. I would say let the board.
So
do the
it's
thing.
maintained, it's landscaped, it's.
Is there any plan to make that permanent, like that they want to build, construct? or-
Well, that's what Susie had asked, and a few years ago, they had done some fundraising or some feasibility, I guess, to take down the little, what do they call that little?
Parish hall.
The
Parish
church,
hall.
oh, yeah.
And build a real gymnasium and other facilities for these types of activities, arts and music. And I think the cost was just prohibitive, and it's a smaller parcel of land,
Yeah.
but they had trouble parking in it.
Well, now costs are much lower, so maybe they can consider it then.
Cost where?
Tariffs.
All right, anything else on zoning? All right, very good. H, recycling report. Any questions or comments there? All right, EAC, we had a member resign. And Brendan, do we know either of those alternates wish to become a member?
I think we might wait on the appointment, to give a little more time, because there's a guy who is an associate who has been great. So I'd like to give him the chance to weigh in whether he wants to be a full-fledged member. Then there's another individual who would be great to be a member. He's been doing stuff just as, a person who attends the meetings.
That might be
That's Tyler, yeah.
yeah, that's one in your folder
Right.
tonight.
Yeah. Okay,
And then we've got a couple other people who have expressed interest, so could be an opportunity to just invite everybody to like the next EAC meeting. And, just getting more people involved at a minimum, but then to really clarify who wants to do
Right.
what,
and then maybe consider the applications next month and then
right?
vote after that.
Yeah.
You okay with that? Yeah,
It's
okay.
totally,
Because everybody's still involved, so like, it's not like everybody's really short-handed or something. Right,
Yeah, okay, great.
so you don't need me to do anything for this month? You just-
not for this month, not to a point, no.
We'll just accept the resignation and.
Yeah.
Thank her for her service.
All right, tab J, municipal campus solar project. Some things have happened there, moving. So we, as Mike wrote, we're in the process of drafting an RFP to be put out. And a lot of those services are covered by these awards we've gotten, as you probably read. And I see the one thing that we have new is a proposal from Ron to further his services. Ron has been really instrumental in helping with this project. I think we had one contract with him, very,
Very minor. He's the
Very
one that did
minor.
The feasibility study
Yeah.
for us.
but he's been great. I mean, he's put a ton of time in, has been a really good resource. So the idea behind his involvement is that the services through the SEM program end at the end of this year, correct? They
Correct.
those hours can't bleed into 2026, and the anticipation is this project, no matter where it goes, is going to bleed into 2026.
Yeah, and we're gonna probably need somebody to help us guide us along, and Ron, pretty inexpensive compared, when you look at what an engineer costs. To do the kind of work, and he's among we heard from a couple of different people on calls that we've been on, like, oh, he's the solar guru, like, he's the guy you wanna have in your corner talking, so. It seems like a pretty good arrangement.
Especially if we use the grant.
Well, yeah, that's the other thing, though. We found out, Craig reached out, our Moore grant ends at the end of this year as well. We have to have those expenditures done by the end of the year. So we can't use any of either grant for into 2026. We have to use the time now and the money now. You can still use that grant to buy down any financing or do, but when Practical Energy Solutions comes back, if they have any recommendations, even if it's just like, hey, we found air gaps here, you should hire a contractor to caulk this or tear the drywall out and make sure you put spray foam insulation in because, there's an air gap somewhere. We don't think that's gonna happen, but I'm just giving examples, or if there's some kind of contraption put on the, one of the HVAC machines, like if it would pay to do that,
Is that technical term of contraption?
some kind of check. It's a canoe belt. You have to change that.
J-Rod. So well, you learned about the more grant expiring, that was after you figured that.
After I had written this, like, I think I wrote in there, that Craig was asked to look into that, see if we can use some of that money. And the answer is yes, you can, but the dilemma is, we're gonna need Ron's time after 2025, and that's when that grant expires as well, so. We'll
Yeah,
probably
another
have a
grant.
copy for that.
Yeah, well, it's a minor amount in the grand scheme of it, so.
Yeah.
Um,
So if you're okay with, awarding a contract to him, basically just paying him on an hourly rate.
Yeah.
He's only giving you an estimate of his time, and he's going very conservatively
Yeah.
high.
Yeah, I would support that. And, this looks like a worthwhile project, but at the end of the day, we're not gonna do it if it doesn't make sense. So, going through all these motions, a lot of this analysis cost being covered is a big bonus. Because we're gonna know going in if it's worth doing.
Yeah, you're gonna put the RFP together for you at no cost. You're gonna put it out on the street, very minimal cost, for advertising. And then you're gonna get numbers back. You're gonna get numbers back for an outright purchase. And you're gonna have to figure out how to pay for it, whether it be through grants and whatever else, if we can do that. Or, you do the payback over time, through a, shared energy arrangement and, make a decision that way. And if either one makes sense, then you don't have any real costs with Ron.
Do we have clear guidance on if IRA funds are available still or no?
If you get in before 2025 ends, everybody is very, very confident that they would be eligible.
So is that what we're kind of,
That's why we've kind of like stepped up our timeline and trying to get the responses back.
I still think it's important to have a column, assuming that was not there at all. What does that return here look like? Worst case scenario, there was no IRA
Sure.
credit. Does
Well,
it still work?
I mean, Ron can run those numbers for us, so.
Yeah.
Based upon whatever the numbers come back from the bidders.
And was that just on the material purchase or was that total project cost?
The
The 30%,
30% is on everything,
everything.
yeah. Yeah, but I think to preserve the, opportunity to get that money back, I think you only have to have as little as like 5% spent.
Right. Right. Okay,
Not a problem.
all right, great. All right, Kay, we talked about the highway. Did we talk about this? We did not. Okay. We got the bids for the 2025 highway resurfacing program. Obviously, costs across the board are a little higher, but the base bid is kind of right in line with the money we have earmarked for it. So Mike's recommendation was not to add the alternates, but it looks like we're in decent shape with the base bid as planned.
Yeah, actually, the numbers came back pretty good from the low bidder. They're less than what Ian had projected in his estimates. And that's actually Ian's recommendation not to do the alternates, because the cost for the alternates are significantly higher than the base bid. And we think that's because we're paying them to move the equipment around the town instead of unloading once. We try and condense everything together so that we don't have to pay to move that stuff around. So, we'll end up having a little bit of money left over, in our budget, but we're doing that Avondale Road project, which is one of the streets to get paved, and we may need that in order to do the storm sewer system. And that money will be coming in from the utilities for restoration costs, we can use it for that.
Did Glasgow do last year too?
They did
When did those bids come in?
April 2nd, I believe. 2nd, something about it.
Just 'cause oil prices have come down significantly and are expected to continue to track lower. Wouldn't that lower the cost of asphalt or?
There's definitely, well, it could. There's definitely an escalation clause in there. I don't know that there's a
De-escalation
clause.
clause?
I'd have to ask Ian about that tomorrow, see how that.
Re-escalation clause?
Because I remember, didn't last year we postponed, it's a small project, but we postponed paving at Beischer because the costs came in were initially high. And we
Yeah,
thought
I think
they
it was
might
like 2 years ago.
they might be lower in the future.
Can you get them to rework the numbers without putting the bid back?
Nah, we got to rebid the whole thing. You have to reject all bids and then redo it.
And it's just fluctuating for many reasons right now as well. I don't know, it's strong view. I would think you put in a lot of work and ready to roll.
What's the total budget?
So.
It's under budget.
Yeah, it's under budget. It's, 423, 599.
Do we know? how
We
much-
had about
The low bid was 400.
425-ish.
402, 793, so you're 20,805 under budget.
Do we know how much of that budget was asphalt?
We do. 334,000 is in paving and 68,000 is in milling.
So even if.
But that gets
Down
labor
10%.
too, that's not just.
Oh, well, all right.
Yeah. you
Even if
got-
it came down 10%, we could say 25 grand.
It's applied in place, yeah, so it's,
Well, I mean, we just don't know. I mean,
Right.
by the time they do the work, prices could be back up again.
yeah, one of the reasons we have started to put the bids out in March and then open them up in April is because when we were do it later in the year, a lot of these contractors are already booked up for the season, so they're not quite as aggressive with their numbers. So we found that like the towns that put their bids out in March, like we're doing now, we're getting better numbers than we were in April and May. So we made an effort to try and do it earlier.
Yeah.
So what we might make up for in like some oil savings, we may lose because they're already pretty busy.
Yeah.
So I don't know, I haven't noticed the gas prices going down all that much.
Not yet.
So
Correlation.
I don't know, whatever, let us know what you want to do.
I mean, it's a worthy question. I don't know that we can act on it.
Yeah, I think,
I'll
I
ask
think
you
it's a
tomorrow.
marginal saving.
Do we have a de-escalation provision in there if it drops by a certain amount? I know that there is an escalation clause, that we
Yeah.
got hit by that a couple times.
Yeah, I mean,
And then that should give you the crude, the raw cost of what they estimate the mechanic would be, I think.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe it breaks it down.
Well, you have to look at the contract.
I think our bid form just says cost per ton applied in place, supply and install.
that might be something to consider for future contracts. I mean, if prices do come down in the middle of the contract, that could be windfall for a bidder. Just like if prices go up, you know, so it might not be bad.
Yeah, if they have an escalation clause, it might be worth defining what
Yeah,
price
it should go
per,
two ways.
per ton they're using for that.
Yeah.
And then have the escalation.
It's just never gone down before.
Yeah,
Oh, it's
yeah,
going
yeah,
up,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
going anywhere.
Yeah.
And look, at the end of the day, it's probably
Yeah,
minimal. We're
stock
talking about a
market
couple
said-
month period,
Yeah,
you know, so.
and like there's an index that they follow for that purpose.
Right.
So.
All right, we'll see what Ian says.
Well, thank-
Otherwise, I'm good to proceed with it. All right, Avondale, we discussed. Tab M is sale of used equipment. I think we've been selling a lot of used equipment. last
You've
week.
had a lot of vehicles that have been delayed in delivery.
Mhm.
So once they
Mhm.
get, you know, if we get them, then we get rid of the stuff that they're replacing. And we
Okay.
were holding on to stuff because we couldn't get the replacement stuff. So you've got a 2005 International Refuge truck with a blown motor that, we're not gonna repair. It's a DEP vehicle, and we have to give the money back to get the piece anyway, so. I'm not gonna invest the money in it. You got a state body truck that should be the replacement should be delivered by the end of the month. There's a Ford Explorer, it's an old detective vehicle that's getting replaced by the electric pickup truck.
Yep.
Ford Explorer. Patrol car, it's actually the corporal's car, that's gonna get auctioned, it's got a new one coming.
That was the only one that surprised me in terms of how low it was. I mean, 2021.
Yeah, we've got 87,000 miles on it.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess. Okay.
And then 2012 Tahoe, we're getting rid of.
The 2021 Ford Interceptor, that's not a hybrid, is it?
I don't think you can do that.
It would have been one of
I mean,
our
the Tahoe is,
first.
Tahoe's a gas guzzler.
Yeah.
is 9 years older. He has even more miles and it's only $1,000 difference. I guess at that point, you're just-
Tahoe's hold their value. It's amazing
Hmm.
what we get for those things.
all right.
And our new township color for the trucks is black?
No.
I thought I saw, I saw one with black today, the Springfield on it.
That's your eyesight.
Ford two
That's
fifty?
your eyesight going bad.
No, they're all white.
Really? Okay.
It might have a black grill on it.
Oh, no, this is a dark, a very dark color. I thought it was black, but.
Nah,
Raise.
Okay.
Raise off.
dark green, but it's green with yellow lettering. Yeah, it's not black.
Hmm.
So,
Okay.
All right, and we'll discuss executive.
Yep.
Shade Tree Commission. We have one person resigned, who's been there forever. Tom's been a state.
He was a charter member.
Yeah, he left and he came back, right? Very
Did
short
he leave
period.
and come back?
I think a very short period. when he came back.
Really? Okay.
Or maybe he said I'll quit, but then didn't.
Mhm,
Something, I don't
yeah,
know. But anyway, he's been there forever. Great.
he has. Nice
Great-
job,
great
very nice job.
contributor.
Yeah, nice job.
So,
I thought you were right.
so we have two alternates there
Wow.
and, Beth, do you have any intel on that? You'll talk with the alternate members?
Yes, we'll see each other, at Arbor Day and we'll meet once before then, so I'll talk to them.
Okay.
Do you want to hold off on a appointment there as well? Okay.
All right, and then, tab B, announcement for Arbor Day celebration on Saturday, April 26th. And sounds like we're doing the tree giveaway again on a lottery basis, which seemed a lot better last year, right? Is that the first year we did it? The lottery system versus the first come, first served?
2022 was the first year.
Okay, great. So we'll make an announcement on that on Wednesday as well.
Yep.
Anything anybody wants to add on that?
Actually, you got a resolution there too, so you can adopt the resolution.
For recognizing it as our
Arbor Day.
Arbor Day? Okay,
Yep, and then you make an announcement, you know, that you'll have the Arbor Day celebration.
okay, great. And we're doing it at the library?
Yep. Gonna replace where the sweet gum
Hmm.
didn't make it, had a hollow inside.
All right, very cool.
One notation for the future, I think, be sure the location is well located this time. I think we had to move the last one last time we did the tree, and then also to be sure we get a good watering schedule on. it.
Yeah, shade tree is on it. Yes. they're
Very good.
Serious about the watering schedule. I think there's been better communication between, in the last year, between, shade tree and public works around location of trees.
I just recall last year we put in a tree and everyone said, well, that's not gonna work, and they had to move it on the.
That was
same
like day of.
Day
Yeah,
of, that's
day
what I'm
of,
saying.
they were like, the hole's in the wrong spot.
Oh, yeah,
They were
yeah, that's
here.
right, yes.
We dug a new hole very quickly.
Yeah,
Just wanted to be Sean.
that was your
the
first
hero
one.
notation.
Yeah, Sean.
Sean was the hero of the day.
Be sure, you're sure this time.
I only have one thing I wanted to bring in. Oh, I didn't see the monthly real estate.
Now Rob
Sales
was
sheet.
out.
Okay,
Yeah, we'll get it.
okay. Anybody have anything else before executive?
I have just one, go ahead.
No, you gotta be.
I just have one, because in Ian's report, he talked about township properties and Kingston Road
Yep.
and the vandalism and stuff that was going on, or the dumping and stuff like that. So just from a historical perspective, why do we have a dump
It's not a dump.
in the middle of all those nice residential neighborhood?
It's not a dump. Basically, we have stone stockpiled there that we use and we pick up and we use it somewhere else. We have sand stockpiled there. We have other materials that we just don't want cluttering up the yard that we have there. I mean, we don't do any active dumping.
I tell you, it looks like a dump to me. I mean,
Well,
it just seems like a terrible waste of you could put a nice park there or something.
well,
It's just,
then we have to find a location for the material storage that we do there somewhere.
Yeah,
And a lot of what is there, as reported in his report, is illegally dumped. It's not us dumping it there, it's illegally dumped.
okay,
And even the neighbors in that area tend to take all of their, even though we pick up yard waste,
yeah.
their yard waste, and they
Yeah.
just throw it over the fence, and it just kind of like accumulates.
I mean, it's been that way for forever. I mean,
Yeah.
what's the origin of that? I mean, just seems so unnatural to have this, you know. Not a dump, it's certainly accumulation of dirt, all, you know, the middle of this
Yeah.
nice residential neighborhood.
Should we get a ring camera there to stop the dumping?
Yeah, I mean,
So so I just walked past there this past Monday, last Monday, so we can, so basically it's the trail behind Marlowe Field, right? And you can look up and there's a hill, it's pretty steep, you know, where this material storage site is. So there's always been like a lot of trash back there. We've done an annual cleanup with the Girl Scouts for Earth Day back there, and we've just got tons of stuff. And there's always stuff that like ends up back there from kids hanging out there. We just took a couch out, you know, that was back there with beer cans and stuff like that. Now the street sweeper does put material there, right?
on occasion,
When they-
most of the time, when we're picking up leaves, it goes over to the arboretum,
Okay,
like that whole leaf season, so from like September through December, it's
Yeah.
going there. But then at other times of the year, and then in the winter, it's not out on the street because of the water that it uses freezes, so we can't do street sweeping activities, so or about like late March or something when it comes out, March to August.
Yeah.
They'll put some material there.
yeah.
But that's coming to an end. We know we're gonna have to get a container and start paying to get rid of that.
But it's, when I walked by there last week, I mean, it's the cleanest it's ever been. There's always trash back there because just people hang out back there and ride motorbikes and stuff like that. But there is some older stuff that's like brick and concrete that's like pretty big and heavy that's kind of just like been sitting in the wooded area there. Now, there's some neighbors who, when we started the tank car project, actually came out and lobbied for using the tank car site, building in a feature there, using that as part of this. But we talked about it as a committee, it just didn't make sense, the amount of space you would need for the egress of trucks and all that, it just kind of really ruined the parking layout there. So it just wasn't really feasible. But
I mean, you know, we have fill dirt or topsoil that we find from a job or a project that's going on in town, we'll stockpile it there so that we can have it available for when we have another project in town to use it. We'll buy stone, you know, modified stone in bulk, and we'll deposit it there, you know, in like concrete bins, and then we use it for a job out there somewhere. I mean, we're in the business of like being a contractor, and we have to have that stuff around. So it's a small portion of the property that is utilized for that purpose.
Right.
The bulk of it is all just kind of like wild and overgrown. Yeah.
I mean, I thought it would have been a lovely park location.
I mean, it's part of the same parcels, right? As
Part of
Marlowe
the
Field
field
and that wooded area there.
and the.
Well, that'd be complimentary.
It's very steep,
Steep.
very steep.
It hadn't,
There was a
it
slight-
had never been a quarry or anything? Had it been a
I
quarry?
don't know what the
Yeah.
origins are.
I think it was a quarry.
I don't know.
It was a quarry.
Is there a fence around it?
Well-
On the Kingston side, there's a fence. On the back side where Marlowe Field is, there's no fence.
So if someone's bringing a couch, they're dragging it up that steep?
Well, you can, like, you know, that little parking lot for Marlowe Field,
Yes.
there's like a pathway to walk back there.
Okay.
Almost like a
But-
pipeline. You can
Okay.
walk back.
But you wouldn't even know that our fencing probably up there even exists, because as you're walking that trail, basically along the creek.
Great, yeah.
You wouldn't see it because it's so steep up on the left as you're walking.
Somewhat related, I've been getting an increase, concern about deer overpopulation. I was curious if anyone else has met these concerns or heard about them across town.
See a lot of boxes.
Well, and I think, I checked in with Friends of Wissahickon. I mean, it's a clear challenge, that exists across our nation, depending on how you look at it and in certain areas. And for folks in my area where they butt up to these creekside spaces, it is a challenge. And so they've asked that, we look into it. In past conversations with Mike and Craig, I think we've said that there's no county program for it. But I wanted to just sort of know what everyone thought about deer challenges. A
I think
couple of,
in the past, there have been like mitigation efforts that are not promoted because of.
right, so like the Friends of Wissahickon do deer pulling in certain spaces, but you wouldn't be doing that in suburban neighborhoods, right? And which is mostly what these folks who are concerned are talking about, that gully down by Hole and Ellison, for example, and on the old Sinclair State area. I'm not clear that there was anything ever done, but a couple suggestions were made. One is relevant is, could we clear out more of the creek side along these properties? I don't know if that's really our responsibility or really the homeowner's responsibility, but when I did some research on it, it was just habitat removal, which again, these people who are complaining are identify themselves as environmentalists, but just seeing these challenges on across the board. Another is increasing, maybe for those who like deer, recognizing that people like to see the deer about, having salt licks or something to attract the deer to more park locations. And another was the more extreme cases, some sort of deer contraceptive, which I've done no research on, but just want to bring it up that there are neighbors in the area who butt up to more of these wooded areas and are challenged by these deer challenges. And it seems on cursory research, it's a real problem without a local solution. Well, Craig, we talked about it briefly. Would that be a way to?
Pretty much there again, you have the beings of the wildlife, and all the regulations are controlled by the game commission. There's not too much we can really do.
Relatedly, I saw for parks, you're gonna be doing park cleanup, and those folks at Veterans were just wondering with the water situation, so just notate if there are any water challenges at Veterans that are affecting neighbors as you do park cleanup. I said I would mention it. I don't foresee any, but that are irregular, but just wanted to make note. I wanted to inquire about what are the rules for Airbnbs in general. I saw there was a citation for running an Airbnb.
From Mark. Yeah, that's probably somebody that he's been trying to work with that's been non-responsive. So, yeah, it's kind of a grayish area.
Yeah, I mean, you can always look for an amendment to the zoning code to specify, it as a use and regulate it that way. That's how we see it handled in some places, not all places, but some places, short-term
Do you need a
rental.
license for an Airbnb?
You'd have to set that up in your code.
So.
Well, I don't know what it is
We would
today. Mike will tell you,
consider it
but-
a business, so it would be
Right.
required to have a business tax license and pay the business tax fee. But as far as the zoning goes, it's not a permitted use. But we really don't define it, other
Right.
than Mark is probably interpreting it as either a hotel or some other term that is defined.
Right.
Yeah.
What's the default if someone just rents out a room occasionally, right? It's really the same thing. Although if you're doing an Airbnb, you're probably running it as a business and you're doing it continuously.
Yeah.
But is there any restriction in our code just for somebody renting out their house for a weekend?
There are defined uses. I don't know what they are off the top of my head, but like a rooming house or a hotel, I mean, and they're in various districts. So there's probably some provision for that. I don't know what it is off the top of my head,
Yeah,
but
if you're not in that proper area, you'd
Then you-
be in violation.
correct.
Right, I wonder if it's not defined. Like
But
a
if it
rooming
is-
house has a specific definition and you're renting it, people live there
Correct.
permanently, not as a,
And
Hotel.
those defined terms, they haven't changed in a lot of municipalities over time. So, and they haven't caught up with sort of, how today's short-term rental market
Yeah.
works. That's why you see some places relying upon those defined terms they've had forever, and other places sort of considering updates to their.
Well, I'm sure there's
Their
best
codes.
practices. There's a lot of towns that experience this much higher rate
Correct.
than we would.
tourism
Although-
areas.
Now that the golf tournament's coming, maybe there's people doing it, this month, but I'm sure there's best practices in that.
I inquired because I saw the notation, but a couple of years ago, actually, I remember because I had put it on something to talk about, but I gave birth that month, there was a group home situation, and there's been several in my ward, I think, and combination of conversations about better defining those things, and also when we talk about the national level, these conversations about where Airbnbs fall, and also ensuring that they're not being, homes are not increasing in price due to increase of purchases by organizations, corporations, LLCs, that take Airbnbs and artificially inflate prices in places. Now, I know we don't live in a tourism area, but one of the notations I made, and just a reminder, is I don't think we do have these things well defined, and one of the challenges down the line, I think, for folks, I guess the downstream challenges that are closer don't reflect these modern experiences. I just don't know if I have a strong feeling one way or the other. Just wanted to bring it to your attention. I found that notable, and that should we ever want to better define, I don't know if there's a value to better defining for our township or not, these certain things. In the past, I've thought about, again, the affordable housing prices, and thinking about, oh, is there ever a concern that a conglomerate or an organization can come and buy a bunch of homes and price people out because they trigger the market into rentals, et cetera. I haven't seen that actually happen, but I imagine you don't see it until it does happen and you catch up. And if we can ever get ahead of that, there could be value to getting ahead.
Well, the planning commission is taking up zoning next as their major undertaking. If it's not a urgent matter, and it probably isn't, right? Like, we could probably add that to the list of the zoning.
Something to keep an eye on, only because, in our course materials today, I saw that and I thought, we haven't talked about it in a while. It's something to take note as we approach zoning changes.
I think the big rub comes when somebody or a group, buys a specific property, a whole property, just dedicated to being an Airbnb. And there are people or groups that do that. And then, what's that mean to the neighborhood? What's that mean to the neighbors,
And I would think there's
The
value
community.
too, right? I mean, we live near a college or colleges, and there are limited hotels, for example, and there is value to having occasional Airbnb usage and.
Yeah,
short-term
but
rentals.
the question is, do we as a community want to regulate it in any way, shape or form? I mean, that's the question that would be before us.
Yeah, like I think a couple things come into play. You pointed out, we're not really in a tourist destination. We're not a beach community. We're not in the Poconos. We're not we're close to Chestnut Hill, which is neat and that's a cool place. And we're close to Philadelphia, which is great. But there's plenty of other options for people in all those spaces. And fortunately, I guess depending on how you look at it, but we're all owners of property here. Like the housing stock is valued pretty high. And so you're not going to get a ton of people coming in and saying, I'm going to be able to make money on this Airbnb, scheme if I buy this house. Well, the houses are priced so high that the price to rent the Airbnb
Yeah,
to make it work.
you still have the demand.
Yeah.
Someone wanting to do an Airbnb in Flower Town every weekend, right? It just doesn't.
Yeah.
All I'll say, I don't know if I guess I just wish that the rules were, I think this particular Airbnb is actually near me, so, I just didn't know what the rules are much, aside from the larger.
Was there complaints that led to
For Mark.
the violation?
Yeah, I imagine that there was. Or that he completed an inspection and identified, a problem and.
So just as a matter of course, in our township, there should not be any. I don't know how one would define it, daily rental.
Short-term rental.
Short-term. rental.
Yeah, the answer is you'd have to tell us exactly what is going on there so that we can make a determination. Right, because that's gonna determine how we interpret what's going on. Is it a hotel? Is it a rooming house? What is it?
But officially, we don't have a Airbnb hotel. Well, we actually have.
No,
a hotel, so-
Short-term rental.
Short-term
Yeah,
rental.
we don't have.
Sounds
Not
like, sounds like a
defined.
clever tax avoidance scheme. You convert it to commercial for 2 years and you can sell it and pay the taxes and buy it commercial. 10-year exchange. Just that's, it sounds like to me.
I,
There's some municipalities that just regulate, you can have no less than a 1 week rent. I don't know how constitutional it is or how legal it is, but like, there's some that just say, no less than a 1 week rental in any residential district. Should be a 30 day.
just wanted to know the rules
Right.
on that.
Well,
Okay.
like Jim said, the zoners are on that, so I'm sure that
Planners.
Montgomery can't, well, yeah, the planners are on that, and the Montgomery County Planning Commission model ordinance that I'm sure they're gonna present is gonna have that
So,
figured out. I got 3 quick things.
Okay.
So number 1 is in your packet tonight is the Whitmore Hose Company financials. We require the 3 fire companies to provide them on an annual basis before we give them their annual stipend. Whitmore is traditionally the first one to get their financials done and the first to request their stipend. So
Okay.
that'll be on your bill listing at the end of them to go out, just to make you aware of that.
Anything of note?
No.
Okay.
They spent some cash on a new vehicle, so, but their
Okay.
assets are still.
Okay.
The STEM board would like to do an emergency management tabletop exercise. The county will provide that training at no cost. However, if you want to have your police supervisory staff there, and you want to also have your volunteers there, you have to have it at a time where it's convenient for the volunteers, which is either going to be on a Saturday weekend, or it's going to be on like a Monday night when they have their regular training. So we'll have some overtime associated with that. And we will also have, we'll feed them, whether it be a breakfast and a lunch on a Saturday or some kind of a dinner on Monday. So I just want to make sure you're okay with that. It's good thing to do.
Yep.
Um,
That came up at our STEMS meeting a couple of times too.
Yeah, so
The
Bob's
desire to
already-
do that.
Yeah, Bob's already followed through with getting the county on board, and I think they're gonna use one of the nursing homes as like an example, like a fire that requires them to evacuate and move these people to other places for their safety. So it's a good exercise.
Yeah. Is the intention though, the following year is a different type of training, sort of building that?
They may have one in the field, an actual
Yeah.
live one. Like we did one years ago at the high school. And we did the tabletop and then we did the actual live one the following year.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's how he talked about it in our STEM meeting. It was a 3-year cycle. I think it was tabletop. Forget exactly what the middle one was, and the third one was a live.
Yeah, that was all Richmond County as well.
Okay.
So, and then the last thing is, next month, if you're okay with that, let's do a resolution recognizing, Carol's 38, 39 years of service, and Chuck was here for just shy of 18 years. So recognize both of them. I don't know if we get Chuck to come out or not. I think I can get Carol. to come.
yeah.
Her luncheon was very well attended.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was nice.
Chuck did not want anything. He was very adamant about that. We ordered some pizza anyway, just so that the staff could kind of have lunch with him, one last time. But I mean, I don't want to talk too much, but he was concerned that he would get too emotional. Yeah. So,
Sounds like he needs a surprise party.
well,
Well, I don't
somehow,
want to mess with this ticker.
somehow worked that out. And 2 of the fire companies found out, and a couple of guys came over and just shook his hand and said goodbye. It was pretty neat. He signed off for the last time, on the radio. So I think that was emotional for him. Good job. Yep. So we wish him well. So that's all I have.
Anybody else have anything for executive? Do you have any Zoomers, Craig, too? Okay. Right, now we're gonna go into executive. We have a couple items to cover there. And then we will not be back for public. So thank you for joining us, and that'll conclude our meeting.